hour just trying to process what had happened. And then, of course, Wednesday, I did a bonus hour show of 3 hours where we had a tremendous amount of great guests on. As I said during that, and very sincerely meant, it was a unique situation in the sense that when people die and we do tributes to them, normally it's a case of trying to find people who really were influenced and impacted by that person. In the case of Eddie Van Halen, the opposite scenario was the case. It was a case of just trying to find time for a fraction of the amount of people that would have fit that criteria and wanted to come on. And of course, on Wednesday, there were a bunch of people that wanted to come on or would have come on, but just were not emotionally ready to do so, which I completely respect. I was in touch with Michael Anthony, in touch with Sammy Hagar. Of course, those guys, regulars on this show and good friends, and they are dealing with this the best they can. They were in an unbelievable situation in that they were traveling to do a pay-per-view concert, which was being shot for Sammy's birthday, and trying to process that as they had to go out and put on a concert at a party, you would imagine would have been incredibly challenging, but they did the best they could, I'm sure. So we did that show on Wednesday and had everybody from Morello to Mike McCready to Sebastian Bach to Bret Michaels, on and on and on. If you heard it, you know. We did the best we can in celebrating and remembering Eddie with some of the people that called in on Wednesday, and that will continue. I mean, that's going to be an ongoing thing. Even yesterday's show, when we had pretty much the entire second hour with Sully Erna of Godsmack and Aaron Lewis of Stained, Van Halen Talk is going to come up with all of these guys, as it should be, because there's just nobody in rock. And that's all we focus on this show is rock. So this is a direct hit to our world. And there is nobody in rock that was not impacted by Eddie Van Halen. It's as simple as that. So this is going to be an ongoing thing, and it should be, quite frankly. It is of unbelievable importance. It is just incredible to even still process. And we got a few things from Sully and Aaron yesterday, which was a pretty funny interview if you listen to it. We had a little bit of audio problems at the top with Aaron's feed, but that we cleaned up about halfway through. And then, Aaron Lewis, who smokes, he's a great guy, but he smokes a tremendous amount of weed, always did. And he is just like, I love that guy's demeanor about stuff. He's just, he's funny. I just find him funny. And he revealed at the end of, we did that interview over Zoom. And look, I know that everybody's gone Zoom crazy during the pandemic, and I understand it's an incredibly useful tool, so I have no issue with that. But when it comes to radio, it's not my preferred thing to talk to people over Zoom if I can help it. That's why the bulk of the interviews you hear, if they're up to me, happen over the phone, because I think it's better. I think it sounds that way. I think it's more radio-like. And there are these things with Zoom where everybody doesn't have it figured out. You're at the mercy of what kind of microphone they're on. Sometimes the Zoom feed cuts off the other person talking, so you can't have a crosstalk thing. So again, I understand it's very useful and sometimes it's effective, but the whole reason why it's done for radio is because they want to be able to capture the video and use it on the app, which I understand. So there are those instances where we'll go that Zoom route when the company wants it. My preference is always the phone. And it's funny because Aaron yesterday, who I was told going in was not the most technically savvy person, but we know with Zoom, I mean, all you got to do is hit a link, right? It's pretty simple. But he was having internet issues, and then he revealed towards the back end of the interview, after talking for almost an hour to these two guys, looking at him on my iPad screen, that he never saw me. He never turned on his feed, his video feed of seeing me. And the whole time he was looking at our engineer, Angelo, who's in Kentucky, who he said looked like the singer in Driving and Crying, which I never put together. He does. And what's funny is Angelo, who I'm sure never heard of Driving and Crying, went and Googled it to see who the guy was that he looked like, that Aaron Lewis said he looked like, and he agreed he looked like him. So it was nice talking to Aaron for about 40 minutes yesterday, and then he saw me for all of 2 minutes. But like I told him on the air, I got a face for radio. That's why I do this. So it was just a fluke that I got on TV for many years. So that was a fun interview, and we did get a little Van Halen stuff in that. But, something struck me, and all of this to say, this whole week has been nonstop and a tremendous amount of guests, and today is all about you, as usual. That's what we do on Fridays. So I'm coming to you on the phones very, very soon for the entire show. And on Tuesday, right after the news about Eddie broke, I did get some calls on the air. Not a lot, but a few from you guys. Today will be nothing but your calls. And if that is all about Eddie Van Halen, that is totally welcome. If that's about anything else, that's welcome. That's what the whole idea of Free For All is. But I have not had a chance to give you guys an outlet, and I want to be able to do that today. So we're going to come to you on the phones very, very soon. Just a few other things from me here at the top before we do so. So a lot has gone on even in the last 24 hours. And I've talked to a lot of different people who are continuing to process and deal with the loss of Eddie Van Halen. I've even talked to some people in the Van Halen organization. And again, that stuff will remain private. But, everyone's dealing with this in their own way. And everyone's processing it and trying to deal with it. And I went and took a walk this morning just to get some air and some exercise, and I threw on my headphones. And I have to check something, right? Because last night, and I'm curious where this is at. If you follow me on Twitter, at Eddie Trunk, where I now have just went over 300,000 followers, 301.9 thousand. So thank you to everybody who does follow me. That's a nice landmark there. So thank you. But I put up a poll last night, which I do from time to time, because it's always curious to see and get a pulse from people and to read from people about things. And I've always made that case that, to me, the first 4 Van Halen albums are untouchable. And I believe that. And so, to me, after the first 4, and I've said a million times, there's a ton of other stuff I love. Tons. But first 4, top to bottom, untouchable. So I put up a poll last night, because every interview I read, every guitar player I talk to always cites Fair Warning as the album. Like, that's the album. I never understood, and I've asked guitar players about it, and they've kind of explained it to me, but I've never understood what guitar players and musicians find in Fair Warning that always makes it like the guitar record. To me, that would be the first album. But there's this thing about Fair Warning that people just, especially musicians, that's the one they point to. And I could never get my finger on it. And to me, if I'm going to rank the first 4 albums, which again, I think are all A+, I really do. But if I had to put them in an order, if I was forced to put them in an order, for me, Fair Warning would probably be the 4th. Doesn't mean I don't love it. As just what I said just a second ago, it would be like, A+++, A++, A++. It's just that tight. But in terms of what I go to of the first 4 the most, it would probably be in the 4th spot. But guitarists love that record. Something about the Brown sound, the tuning, I guess it's more of a technical thing. So this morning, I took a walk along the beach. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go back. I'm going to listen to Fair Warning top to bottom. I haven't done that in a little bit. And I got to tell you, as I put my headphones on, beautiful weather here in New Jersey, and I'm walking and of course, opens with Mean Streets, and I'm going through the record. When it got to around Hear About It Later, which is maybe my favorite track on the record, as I'm listening to this record, it dawned on me that I have not really myself in fan mode dealt with the enormity of this loss. And what I mean by that is, ever since everything happened, ever since the world of rock changed and we had that unbelievable loss on Tuesday afternoon and that news came out, I have been in radio mode. I have been in that mode that I have to default to, and have, unfortunately, many, many times in my career, where the immediate thing is not like, what does this mean to you, to me, What does this mean to rock? What does this mean that we don't have Van Halen ever again? All of that goes out the window because of what I do and because of being on the air. The immediate thought is, how do I honor the guy? How do I do this? How do I deliver for my audience something that they want? How do I give them an outlet to process this and grieve about this? And how do I get some artists on that they'd want to hear from? So from that minute, I've been in that mode. And then today, I throw on the headphones, I start walking, and I mute my phone, which I highly recommend people doing every once in a while, if you can do it even for a half an hour. Because, I mean, between texts and emails, it's exhausting. It really is with phones. My favorite time in the world is to mute my phone when I go to bed and not unmute it for like another hour, not even look at it for at least an hour after I get up, because it's just nonstop. But I did that, and I put the headphones on, and I was like, okay, what album am I gonna go to? And I went to Fair Warning because of what I just said. I wanted to listen to it again to hear what I maybe wasn't hearing. And I got to tell you, it was very emotional for me. It really was, especially when Hear About It Later came on, which I don't know. The beginning of that song came on, and I was in high school again, which is where I was when Fair Warning came out. I was walking down the high school, I was walking down my school lot. I saw the lockers on each side of the hall. And it was just an unbelievably heavy emotional appearance and a heavy emotional moment. And, I got very emotional about it. I was by myself, and I'm on the boardwalk just walking, and I've got this music in my ears, and the whole thing just hit me. Eddie Van Halen is gone. And again, remember, I'm not going to misrepresent myself to you guys in any way. This is purely coming from a fan standpoint. A lot of artists that when this happens to, and as you know, there's a lot of artists having me having done this for decades that I am close with and friends with and talk to off the air. Some people can't handle that and they're jealous about it and, he's a name dropper and all that. I don't play with that. That's just bullshit. That's just bullshit jealousy when people say that. I'm fortunate that I've done this for a really long time and built these relationships. Sorry if some people can't handle that, but it's a benefit to the audience because it gives me access to them. But in the case of Eddie Van Halen, I did not know the guy. This is not one of those cases where there's so many where I actually knew the person and was in touch with them and had a relationship with them in any way. I did not. I would never lie to people and misrepresent myself in that way. I met the man one time. I interviewed him one time. And there had been dialogue for years through intermediaries about doing something. He and his camp had reached out to me recently about some things, which I'm not going to talk about publicly because it's fairly private stuff, but asked me for some help with some stuff. So there, felt like there was a relationship, but I did not know the man personally beyond the one time I met him and one time I had him on the air. This was all just coming from a fan emotional standpoint. Hearing Fair Warning put me in high school. And the last, whatever it's been, 40 years since then, have just flashed through me as I listen to this record. And listen to the genius of it, and listen to the timelessness of it. It's just hard to put into words how big of a loss this is and how much this means to so many. For you guys, no doubt as well. And that's kind of my point. I'm talking to you today, and I'm giving you these insights about how this has all made me feel 100% from a fan standpoint, just like you. This isn't one of these situations that happens so often where, yes, people hear me talk about somebody because I knew them personally. I did not know them personally. I am as wrecked about this as anyone, 100% because of what the music, the man, the band meant to me and everyone else. So I am right on that wavelength with you. I don't have a personal, beyond the one story I told, which is when he called my radio show around the time of Van Halen 3, invited me to the Garden, left me a pass. I met him, went in the tuning room, shook hands, talked for a few minutes. Why I never got a photo at that moment, I don't know. And went out and watched the show. That was the extent of my... And I got to find that interview. I got boxes of archives, but I've got it somewhere. So all of this to say, it's just been a week, an unbelievable, emotional, draining, tough week in what's been an unbelievable, draining year. So I'm right there with everybody that's feeling this, and we will continue to feel this for a long time. We'll continue to mourn and celebrate Eddie for forever, obviously. The music is as timeless as ever. The other takeaway for me, and I've always said this about Van Halen, to me they're the American Led Zeppelin, in the sense that you listen to the early Led Zeppelin records, and they're as great as anything you ever heard still 50 years after they came out. You listen to the early Van Halen records 40, 45 years after they came out, as great and still as vibrant as anything you ever heard. Not dated in any way, nothing like that. It's incredible. From the playing to the songs to the production, which just no bullshit, just sounds like a live band playing in a room, which is basically what it was. It's just incredible. And the thing is, and just to bring this full circle, after listening to Fair Warning and trying to figure it out, it's still in the 4 spot for me. So after I got done giving you that whole spiel, then the takeaway after it was I went right back into fan mode, and I'm like, I still don't fully get it. Like, I get it that it's a great record, but I don't hear in it what these guitar players hear, which makes Fair Warning their favorite record. It's still probably in 4 of those 4 if we rank them. And maybe that's a show we do at some point. Not today, because I want it to be free for all, but maybe at some point we'll just do a show where I'm going to put this on you to put in order the 4 Van Halen albums as far as how you would rank them. So these are the things that I think about. These are the things that I process and deal with in my mind. And that's why last night I put a poll up on my Twitter to figure out and think about, what the people think. Like, what is the order of the first 4 Van Halen records? So after a 15-hour poll and roughly 7,400 people who voted in it, here's the ranking according to my Twitter poll. And according to roughly 7,500 people who voted. Well, not roughly, I give it to you exact, 7,318. 7,318 people voted. And here is their response. To no surprise, Van Halen won at number 1 at 53%. Van Halen Fair Warning at number 2, 24%. And very close, neck and neck almost, Van Halen 2 at 12%, Women and Children at 11%. So the order, according to the poll, goes 1, Fair Warning, 2, and Women and Children. But 2 and Women and Children are essentially a tie. And I guarantee you every single one of those 7,000 plus people who took the time to vote in that poll would have agonized over doing that and would also probably tell you, of course, all 4 are untouchable. But I find it interesting, and Fair Warning is the one record that really didn't have a real bona fide hit on it, if you will. 1 being The Runaway is not a surprise. But my number 2 might be Women and Children. I love Women and Children, and I don't know how. Like, not being a musician, I don't know what it is, but to me, Women and Children is a better record, maybe, if you had to pick, than Fair Warning. I love Women and Children first. But I don't know. Everybody hears something in these things that touches them and moves them in some way, but it's just fascinating. It's fascinating, and it sucks, because this is another band that we will have no more. Now, going forward, Will we get reissues? Will we get box sets? We know there's a ton of stuff in the archives. All of that to be determined, and we will see down the road as we go. Jimi Hendrix, this was our Jimi Hendrix, folks, and there is a ton of material. We know that. We know that Jimi Hendrix material still comes out. Hell, there's a film coming out in a couple days, Rainbow Bridge on Hendrix. Hendrix has been gone, 50 years? So we know, even though much of it didn't come out, we know there are archives of Van Halen material that have never come out. So we could be getting records and videos, hopefully, and God knows what for decades to come if they choose to do anything with it, which, it's too soon, obviously, but when the dust settles, we'll find out. One other quick note as we peek ahead to next week. Couple quick programming notes, then I'm going to get to the phones. So first of all, this weekend, the entire Van Halen 3-hour tribute show with the artist calling in from Wednesday will re-air here on Volume. All 3 hours of it. So our weekend best of is usually 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, Saturday and Sunday. This weekend, it's 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern. So starting an hour earlier so we can bring you all 3 hours tomorrow and Sunday if you missed any of it. So mark that down. Of course, it's all on the app as usual. But for those that don't get the app or don't deal with the app or whatever the issue with the app is, over the air, 7 to 10 Eastern, 4 to 7 Pacific, tomorrow and Sunday, the entire 3-hour Van Halen show from Wednesday with Mike McCready, Sebastian Bach, Brett Michaels, John Five, Scott Ian, Tom Kiefer. I can't even think of all the people, but you knew it if you listened to it. It was Tom Morello. It was incredible. So, and I think he was squeezed in a few fan calls during that. So that's this weekend for re-air. And then also last night, I had a text exchange with Neil Schon of Journey. So Neil, for people that don't know, one of Van Halen's earliest tours was opening third build to Journey in Montrose. And as I just said earlier, and I've been saying all week, we're going to be talking about Eddie Van Halen for a long time. And so many of these artists who are just processing this and dealing with this in their own way, as we go forward, are going to want to come on and talk when they're ready. And Neil reached out to me, and Neil actually did a cover of Ain't Talking About Love a few years ago that was never released. And he sent it to me. And I said to him, he said, I loved Ed and we were close and this and that. I said, Neil, you want to come on and talk about all this, man? Say the word. So he's going to do it. So next Tuesday, to start the second hour, and he's always great when he comes on with us, and I appreciate him doing so, the legendary Neil Schon of Journey, sharing thoughts and remembrances of his history and friendship with Eddie Van Halen, and some remembrances of what it was like having that young kid at the time, back in 78, opening for his band Journey. Not directly, because Montrose was between Van Halen and Journey on that run. And I've seen statements from Neil saying he was really glad Journey didn't have to go on right directly after Van Halen, because it was a nightmare for Ronnie Montrose at the time to do so. And the irony of that is Neil and likely Ronnie Montrose are people that influenced or that Eddie liked or covered their material. And here was this kid now on the road with them just dominating. So I can't wait to get some thoughts and insights from Neil. We'll get a little Journey update from him as well. That's going to be on Tuesday's show. And we'll see what the rest of the week looks like. Lately, Mondays, we've been having some breathing room coming off the weekend, and I think we'll have that as well to get more calls on Monday, because usually we don't get to nearly enough here on Friday, and then coming off the weekend, there's stuff to talk about also. So there's a little update for you on as many fronts as I can give you since I talked to you yesterday. Let's take our first break. We'll come back. The rest of the way, it's you and anything you want to hit me with on the already jammed phones on a free-for-all Friday next.
Trunk Nation.
It's what Google types in when they need information on all things rock.
Sirius XM.
Freaking awesome.
Volume.
I listen to pop before I go on stage to get really amped up.
All right,
Actor Woody Harrelson joins U2 guitarist The Edge for a conversation and listen back to U2's groundbreaking 1997 album Pop.
It seemed like this is the moment to really go there and try new things.
The Edge and Woody Harrelson talk pop. Premieres Monday, 9 p.m. Eastern and Pacific on U2X Radio, Channel 32 and the SiriusXM app.
Liberty Mutual Insurance Company presents and Doug.
Okay, class, let's bump it up to 9.
Come on, Limu, keep pedaling. We got to build our endurance to let more people know that Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance, so you only pay for what you need.
Pick up the pace, bird legs.
Hey, don't talk to Limu like that.
I'm not, I'm talking to you.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Get a customized quote at libertymutual.com.
Back to work at that job, the one you realized isn't for you? Well, that's if you're lucky, right? Make your move. You can start a new life as an IT pro in as little as 4 months from the comfort of your own home, even if you have zero computer experience. Take control of your future now. Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation today. Live online classes meet just twice a week. It's not rocket science. It's mycomputercareer.edu.
Hey, I'm Claire. I'm an engineer at Dish Network, but I like to say I'm the master of the multitasker. That's what I call the Dish DVR I helped engineer. It's TV's most powerful DVR. That thing will record up to 16 shows at the same time. 16. Ever tried doing 16 things at once? I'd have a meltdown. But the Hopper? Yep. It'll record so many shows. No meltdowns. And by meltdowns, I mean that thing that's like thunk. Recording conflict. Good luck getting that from the Hopper. So now, instead of wasting time rescheduling recordings, you can work on the art of multitasking, like nodding while saying no, texting while walking. Just know that no matter what skills you master, the Hopper's got you beat.
Record up to 16 shows at once. Just another reason Dish is ranked #1 in customer satisfaction by J.D. Power. Dish. Tuned in to you. For J.D. Power 2019 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards. To learn more, dial 1-844-CALL-DISH, visit dish.com, or find a local retailer near you.
I'm Paul Stanley, and you're checking out Volume, your liner notes to the world of music.
Free for All Friday with Eddie Trunk.
We talk about all these bands that we love that are putting out new records and who's going to be on them and who's going to release them and what have you.
Trunk Nation.
I mean, you guys love this.
SiriusXM Volume.
Okay, rest of the way, it's you folks, and I appreciate you hanging in there all week. I hope you've enjoyed the shows, and today it's all about you. So I think it's going to be dominated by VH, and that's totally fine, because I want to give you that opportunity to come with the fan perspective and what this has meant to you. It's just devastating across the board. So let's get it going right now. And we begin in New Jersey. Here's Craig as our first caller on a Free for All Friday. Hi, Craig.
Hey, Eddie. How are you?
I'm okay, man. Been a week, but I'm okay. Thanks.
Yeah, same. So you're still wrong about forewarning, and I can, call again to argue about that with you some other time. I just wanted to tell you.
Oh, wait, hold on. Wait, Craig, hold on. So wait, is Fair Warning your favorite of the first four?
It is my favorite of the first six. Yes, it is.
Okay, so Craig, I'm really curious about this. I'm trying to figure it out. So real quickly, are you a guitar player?
I am.
Okay, so what is it about Fair Warning that the guitarists all reference that record? Because I'm not a player, so I'm genuinely curious. Is there something that I don't know, since I'm not a musician, that I'm not hearing in that record that makes that the go-to record?
I mean, it could be something that guitar players hear that other people don't, but I think it's pretty universal. I mean, it represents Eddie's most pure, muscular, aggressive playing. It's a distilled, that album is the best distilled essence of Edward Van Halen's playing, in my opinion.
Interesting. Okay, it's obviously it's all personal preference, but I've just always been curious about that. I think it was Jason Hook from Five Finger that I talked to, and he described some of it in some terms once to me too. But it's just fascinating. I mean, I think we'd all agree that it's all great, but obviously that album is always referenced by the musicians.
Yeah, it's an amazing record. I mean, and also for guitar players, it has a lot of drop D tuning, riffing, which is just, it's just this really, heavy sounding, more dark, aggressive tuning. And it's just, I don't know, it appeals to guitar players, I guess. I guess that's what it is.
Do you think that Fair Warning is a heavier record than Women and Children?
Yes. I think it's a darker record. I think it's a moodier, darker record. I mean, right from the get go, it's Van Halen is always referenced as a party band, and generally speaking, I guess they were. But Fair Warning was a real left turn for them, and it appealed to a lot of people who like that sort of thing.
But you got So This Is Love in there, and Dirty Movies. Those are kind of party songs.
Dirty Movies, I mean, it's like it kind of conjures up the Times Square of the bad old days, really. I mean, it's not a happy song.
Yeah, but Roth yelling, "Take it off!" It's just, I don't know. It's all great. We'll all just agree that it's all great. Craig, what did you actually call about?
Yeah. I just wanted to. I'm still having a very, very hard time processing this the way you are, the way everyone listening probably is. But Eddie Van Halen was. I had the chance to meet him briefly, and it's kind of a similar situation to yours. I was able to go backstage. I won't get into why and how and everything, but I was no one to them. I ended up going backstage during the 3 tour, and they didn't have to say anything to me. They didn't. They owed me nothing, but they took the time to talk to me, and everybody was so cool. And then I got to go back into the tuning room, which I think you did too. Like, it's kind of a different layer of the regular backstage stuff, right? And they invited me to come back there for a few minutes and hang out. And, I walked over to Edward, and I just, I tried. I was very flustered, and I, pretty inarticulately tried to tell him what an inspiration he was to me, and how much I loved his music, and how, just as a teenage kid, how, I had all the posters on my wall, and whatever I said. I don't even remember what I said. And he just reached out and gave me a hug, and that moment will live with me for the rest of my life. And, it was amazing. And so, I just as a regular fan, as someone who was lucky enough to meet them once, I just wanted to let other people know what kind of a guy he was.
Yeah. Craig, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it very much. Thank you. Have a good weekend.
You bet, man. Take care.
I mean, that's something that you're hearing a lot of people, even Gene Simmons put out a video the other day of what a sweetheart of a guy he could be. Now, look, if we're going to talk completely honestly here, there's stories of, craziness on the other end, too. That's pretty much the makeup of just about any rock guy. But in his soul, by every measure, there was a very inherent sweetness to the guy, that he was a very genuine guy and very good guy. Craig's story, and it's interesting that Craig's timeline is the same as mine of around Van Halen 3. And why that's interesting is this. Remember what was going on with Van Halen at the time of Van Halen 3. They had introduced Gary Cherone. So they put out a record that did not do well. So they were very much at that time trying to, as ridiculous as it sounds, reestablish the band. There was a lot of people upset that Sammy was gone. There was a lot of people upset that Roth was gone. They had made a record that was not doing extraordinarily well by their standards. So I think that Van Halen, my take at least at that time, was that they knew that they had to reach out a little bit more to some people, maybe try to bring people in a little bit more, create some really positive vibes around them again, put really good stories out there, maybe be a little bit more open to engaging with radio and such and press, because they needed a little more support at that time, given that they had just gone through a major lineup change. I'm not saying they didn't do that throughout their career, but I think that around the time of 3, that's what happened. Because I'll tell you right now, the reason why I got that interview when I did around the time of Van Halen 3 was they were playing Madison Square Garden and the show was not sold out. So I was doing a fill-in shift. I was not even on the air at the time at the station I started out working at in New Jersey, DHA. And I was subbing for somebody. I was subbing for the afternoon guy who was on vacation or something. And the promoter called, the local promoter who was promoting that show, and it was a couple days out from that show, and he said, hey, can I get someone from Van Halen on the station? We need help pushing this show. Interestingly, that's the only time I ever interviewed Ozzy, too, when he needed help selling a show at the Meadowlands on local radio. So of course we said yes, and they walked in and they said to me, hey, Eddie Van Halen's going to call in. I was like, what? They're like, yeah, to push the Garden show in a couple days. And we'll talk about great timing and great luck. I just happened to be on the time he wanted to do it and happened to be there filling in for somebody. So I did that interview. I don't remember much about it. I don't remember how long it was. I have to find it. And then he said to me, my recollection is he said to me on the air, hey, man, I enjoyed talking to you. Are you going to come to the show? And I said, well, yeah, of course, I'd love to. He said, I'm going to set you up, go to the will call, I want to meet you and say hello. And, you don't know if that's, when you get there, if that's actually, they're going to actually leave you the proper passes to actually do that. I mean, you know how many people get quote-unquote backstage passes, but they never actually meet the artist, and they do get nothing but thrown in some hospitality room, and they get to feel like a big shot walking around with a pass stuck to them, which really gets them nowhere. I think we all know at this point there are about 10 levels of backstage passes. And if somebody really wants to meet you, they give you the proper one, or they orchestrate it so that they can. But a lot of it is, go in the hospitality room, get a can of soda or a can of beer, and stand around for an hour thinking somebody might pop their head in there after the show. So that's what I expected. And then when I got there, as soon as I sat in my seat, someone came over and got me, walked me back. This was before the show. Hey, Ed wants to meet you. I said, holy shit. Went back there and went into the tuning room. He was standing there, had the guitar around his neck, noodling around. Of course, I remember the cigarette. And warmest, nicest guy. I couldn't tell you what we talked about. It was probably all of 5 or 10 minutes. And I said, hey, have a great show, and thank you, and walked out. Because that was still before the days where anybody was walking around. I don't remember the year, but that was before the whole cell phone and everybody had a camera in their pocket and a video in their pocket. So in order to bring a camera, you would get patted down going into the garden. You couldn't bring cameras in there. There was nobody around with the camera. I never got a photo of it. But it was a super cool, positive experience. It blew me away that the guy would just, a phone interview, no less, some local schmuck on the local radio station, and he went to that level to say hello and shake my hand. That resonated with me forever. And I can't tell you how many times, folks, in the years since then, because this was always my holy grail interview to get him on. It was during that metal show. I told you that story. He did watch. He did send gear to us. But it was just this elusive thing. And we talked through intermediaries over the years. And it got real close. And I felt like we were going to get. And just as recently as a few months ago, I had dialogue with somebody very close to him about finally, let's just do this interview. Let's get everything out there. Let's do the interview. And I thought maybe we'd have a chance. And I really, as I was saying the other day, thought that if the Sammy Michael stuff was real, and now we know, as confirmed by the manager yesterday, the Michael stuff was very real. And I never doubted that because Michael broke that on this show. But if that was real and that happened, I really felt that that was going to finally be my connect to get that interview. Because of my relationship with Michael and Sammy, they could have, we could have made that happen. So it just wasn't to be, man. But I mean, that's okay. What we have to remember and listen to is just unreal. And the stories are going to go on for weeks and days and months and years. And, speaking to some people earlier today, I mean, there is a bonanza of material if and when they choose to put it out when the dust all settles on this. And the other thing in all of this, too, and look, he's a wonderful guy. I can't even imagine what he's going through. But, you can pretty much figure that Wolfie and Alex are now going to be the keepers of the Van Halen mantle, if you will. And now Wolfgang, at some point, when he's ready, is going to start his own career. So the baton is very much going to be passed to Wolfgang now. And not in the sense that, and it wouldn't be fair to him that he's got to go out and make Van Halen music and be his father. Nobody's expecting that. But just in terms of his own career, which he has a record done, which I'm sure was being held because of all of this that was going on behind the scenes. And that record will come out and he'll do his own thing. By every measure of everyone I've talked to, he is as an unbelievable, multi-talented musician. And, the next step in all of this, the guy that will likely oversee the archives and the guy that will take the music and the family name into his world and bring it to the next step. So there's a lot on that young man's shoulders, and I'm sure that once he's processed all this and grieved and dealt with it, he's going to do the best job he can to honor that legacy. I have no doubt about that. I've met him a number of times, and we have been in touch, and he's a really, really nice guy and seems like a very together guy, which is going to be great for taking care, being the custodian of that unbelievable legacy. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm yapping here, but this is a big thing for me, man, too. It's like a two-way street. It's just heavy. So I'm going to try to go way quicker, I promise you, because I know we're already eating up time here. Let me get a break. Let me come back, and the whole way I'm going to go with you, and I'm going to try to keep my mouth shut a little bit more. I can't promise you that. I mean, it is my show, but I'm going to try to hear more from you and move quicker to get as many people in as I can until 4 Eastern. Trunk Nation, coming right back.
Free for All Friday.
Let the audience steer things and just get involved and have a conversation
with Eddie Trunk.
Sirius XM Volume.
Okay, we're back. Back to the phones. Obviously, it's going to be Van Halen dominant here, which is totally fine, but it is Free for All Friday, so anything you want to bring up is fine as well. Let's go to Gregory. He's in Nashville. Gregory, hello. You're on the air.
Hey, Eddie. How you doing?
Good, man. Thank you.
Yeah, really sad news. I knew Eddie, I heard he was sick, and I got to see Van Halen back in 1980, Women and Children's first tour at the old Checker Dome in St. Louis. I wasn't even going to go show that night, and I was working at Fast Eddie's Fried Chicken in Alton, Illinois. I was getting off work, and girls like, I can't go to the show tonight. I got an extra ticket. You want to go? And so I jumped in the 73 Satellite Sebring Plus and went across the river, Mississippi, and went to see Van Halen. And it blew my mind, David Lee Roth was like, oh, I got busted in Cincinnati for smoking a cigarette, but St. Louis, you kick ass, and he came out with a Dave Sigel guitar, and then I saw him Portland, Maine in the 5150 tour, the Monsters of Rock show, rainy day in July of that Monsters of Rock show, OU812. Then I got to see him in Rosemont Horizon, and that was a really funny story. My first wife, she passed away of cancer back in 99, and my son was 8 years old, and he was 10 when his mom died, and she was going to give him $50 not to go to the show with me.
To not go to the show.
We went to the show. Yeah, and so he told me on the way to the show, we're driving about 70 miles to the show, and he's like, Dad, Mom would have given me $50 not to go, but I wanted to see Van Halen. And it was Kenny Wayne Shepherd opened up for Van Halen. It was freaking phenomenal. And the first time I could have saw Van Halen, it was at Madison, Wisconsin, but we were getting a refund from Journey and Thin Lizzy. And they got a big fight the night before at Alpine Valley, and Steve Perry said he had bronchitis, and so we got the Kansas tickets because I'd never heard of Van Halen, and that was their first tour with Black Sabbath.
Yeah, that's
so
it.
I got to.
Go ahead, Greg. I got to run, but go ahead.
I got to see him, and it was awesome. And that show, 5150 tour, they did a Sunday night the first show, and then the second show was on a Saturday night because they had an extra night layover, and it was just phenomenal. So when I get home, I'm a truck driver. I listen to you all the time. Going to get home tomorrow night, I'm going to listen to Live Without a Net. And this is New Halen. Great.
There you go. So. Yeah. Yep. Done in New Haven. Yes. Thank you, Gregory. I appreciate you listening and calling in with your thoughts. Here's Robert, and Robert is in Springfield, Mass. Maybe, Robert? Are you in Massachusetts?
Yes. How you doing, Eddie?
Good, Robert.
I was coming out of work when I heard it. I was lucky enough to see these guys 30 times between all three incarnations. I'm deeply sorrowed like you are. We lost a 1 in a billion talent. And, I've got everything that's Van Halen. I've got it. And I'm just glad that you're still carrying the torch for them. And I just got a couple quick questions. Do you know anything about the book that's supposed to come out in November? It's like a picture book.
I wasn't
the whole. Yeah.
I wasn't aware of a book.
Yeah, it's like a photo book that goes through the whole gambit from the first album all the way through Hager and up through Sharon and just everything.
No, I'm not aware of it, Robert. I mean, the thing is any of the Van Halen books that have come out, whether they be photo books or anything like that, are not official books that are actually dictated by the band. There was a book that was authorized that I believe I think it was authorized. It's an amazing photo book by the photographer Niels Lozauer. And Neil was a guy that shot Van Halen very, very early on and is a West Coast guy and even I think did some of their album photography. And he's got some amazing photos. And he did do a Van Halen book, I think maybe even two of them. And thank you, Robert. And Neil is very close with that camp, so I'm sure they signed off on it and were involved. But there has not been an official, that I'm aware of, official Van Halen book put out by the Van Halen camp, if you will. But that's another thing. The one thing I have no doubt about is if the Van Halen, whatever Van Halen is going forward, whoever is controlling everything, and according to a release that came out yesterday, and it makes sense, would be Alex, his brother, and Wolfie, his son. If they feel this is stuff that should come out and they want to do things and release things, I have no doubt there is a ton that could come out. I mean, we know for a fact there's a ton of recordings. How fully realized they are, if there's something they'd want, worth being released, we don't know that yet. We don't know what's on there, the quality of it, or what have you. But I think it's safe to say there's a bunch of stuff that could be released if they wanted to, because they were in how many times do we talk about it? An incredibly closed, tight-knit group in terms of not letting anything out, not letting information out, not letting releases come out. When Rhino did those reissues a few years ago, they remastered the albums, the Roth-era albums. When they did those, I was stunned at how little was in them, meaning that when Rhino does reissues, there's usually very elaborate packaging and enhanced booklets and, if available, bonus tracks and just a way bigger presentation. And if you have those reissues of the CDs that, I don't know, maybe 8-10 years ago this was, they have almost less content in terms of the booklet and everything than the original CDs. And I remember talking to the guy at Rhino at the time. I was like, man, this is not very Rhino in terms of the reissue. And he said to me, he goes, that's all they'd let us do. And then I met a guy who played me a ton of bonus tracks that would have been on those. And he goes, they didn't want to include them. So there's no doubt there is, whether it's books, CDs, maybe videos, who knows, tons of stuff. That's not a question. The question is, do they want it to come out? Will it come out? When and will it come out? But there could legitimately be albums. I mean, we could get, I wouldn't be shocked if we could get 10 Van Halen records. And now that Eddie's gone, when this is all processed and they get around to looking at it, I don't know what the mentality is now from Van Halen's, from Alex and Wolfie going forward. Is this something that they're going to want to put out there and that the gates will now open, or is it something that they're going to want to keep the locked down? We don't know. It's way too soon. We don't know. But we do know if they wanted to, we could get stuff for decades. Like I said, Hendrix has got something new coming out any day. Jimmy's been gone 50 years. There's still stuff coming in his time frame. Living and working and recording and writing is tiny compared to the amount of time we had with Eddie Van Halen, who also had his own studio, and even though wasn't putting stuff out commercially, was clearly working on things. Stuff to ponder for sure. Another hour of Trunk Nation coming up on Volume.
This is Free For All Friday.
Everybody's throwing a million things against the wall to see what sticks.
An open forum for all things rock. Trunk Nation with Eddie Trunk. Sirius XM.
Play the balls off of it.
Volume.
Going into the break, you heard a little bit of a new song from Greta Van Fleet that was released today. That song is called My Way Soon. And we pondered what was going on with that band because they had been, by their standards, very quiet for about a year. And now we know, like everybody on the planet, they've been working on music and have released a new song and have a coming new record. Regardless of whether you like that band or not or what you think of them, they are one of the, if not the biggest emerging young rock band we have. And it's good that they have music out because they are the one band that really gets some traction out there in the world of rock and crosses over a little bit and gets a lot of attention when they do things. So, and great guys too. I mean, we've had them on this show a couple times, and the tone from the press release for this song is that they were so young, and they were like just out of high school when they started, that now they've got 3-4 years of touring under their belt, and now they're evolving and changing and seeing things differently, and that's sort of the tone of the song, and I assume the coming album. And we'll see. Maybe we'll do something with those guys even for this single. I was told that they're not doing any interviews just around the single, but maybe down the line, but we'll see. Be good to visit with them. We've had them on a couple times, and we'll get an update on what's going on in their world when they're ready, but a brand new song coming out from them today. Also, just, again, I know it's going to be totally Van Halen dominant, and that's totally fine, just to keep you updated on some other fronts. Smashing Pumpkins released a couple new songs, and also happy 30th anniversary to a Stone Cold metal classic. 30 years ago today, Slayer released Seasons in the Abyss. So thank you to Lauren for calling my attention to that. I did not realize that that's been 30 years already. I mentioned Neil Schon on the show on Tuesday, also coming to this show very, very soon, maybe as soon as next week, maybe the week after. Adrian Smith of Iron Maiden. Adrian has a book out about his love of fishing and rock music. Has been a while since I've spoken to Adrian, so we'll get him on very, very soon. That is being worked out right now. Some other stuff cooking as well. And one of the things I want to do as we get back into your phones here in a second is I talked about the fact that there are artists for days, and every single one of them will talk about Eddie Van Halen, of course. But somewhere down the line, when they're up for it, there are some folks that were very, very close directly, personally, in working with Eddie Van Halen for many, many years. And they're folks that I know, and I've invited them to come on the show because their perspectives will be really interesting, and I'd like to get them on because they were literally, dealing with him, working with him on an almost daily basis. And I think that will be an interesting perspective that many don't have. So as we go forward, again, we will always continue to remember and celebrate his legacy for forever. I mean, literally forever. Let's get back to the phones as we pick it up with, I'm not sure how to say this name. Is it Saha?
Saha. Hey, Ed, how you doing?
Saha in New York. Welcome. I'm good. Thank you.
Excellent. Can I make a quick comment before I give you a quick story?
Sure.
All right. Number one, thanks for this show. You're awesome. And it's not yet. It's Eddie Van Halen, of course. Everyone loved him, but it's nice to see all the attention that he is getting as far as all the major media outlets, the billboards across the country. The Sirius channel that they put on is unbelievable. I was listening to today. Phil Collins had a little show, so I'm a little nervous and a little emotional. So I just wanted to
No, I understand, and you're right, man. I mean, the stuff I've seen, obviously, the pop-up channel here, and I'm glad you mentioned that again for people that don't know, but also the fact that I've seen photos in the last 24, 48 hours of the sign in front of the LA Forum, the sign on the Roxy in LA, some billboards popping up in certain cities. I retweeted a couple of those last night. Just amazing to see. It just shows the impact this guy had on so many people. It's incredible.
No doubt. And I'm a drummer, and Eddie was my guy. I don't know how it worked out that way, but there was just something about him that just.
Well, if you heard the show on Monday, that's the first thing Sebastian Bach said when he came on. He said, "Yes, people that don't play guitar were moved and influenced by this guy too," and that's very true. It's just, and that to me speaks to what I've been saying consistently is the mainstream, the media, everyone. The immediate thing is amazing guitar player, and yes, of course, that can't even be denied or argued. But there's such a bigger picture than that is why this is so enormous. The producer, the inventor, the all-round musician. I've heard from many people that he was an unbelievable piano player. He could play anything, like Absolutely. His ability to write songs, his riffage, the riffs that are in the songs. That's the thing when I was listening to Fair Warning earlier. You're hearing all this guitar stuff, but the songs, the riffs, the structure of it, it's just, we could go on for days, man. We really could.
And we will. We could. You can have You can have another show all week, yeah. But real quick, Eddie. I'm a little younger than you. Sorry to throw it out there. But I guess I was 11 or 12, and my sister's older boyfriend, Tommy Nielsen, God bless him, he was a huge Van Halen fan at the time, and he had seen them on the '84 tour at the old Brendan Byrne Arena in Jersey. And back in the day, he recorded the concert himself on cassette tapes. So one night he came over, he gave me the cassette tapes, two maybe 90-minute TDK tapes. And when I put those in my cassette player and I hit play, and even I'm getting chills just even talking about it. Just hearing the introduction to when the guy introduces Van Halen onto the stage, I was like, what in the world is this? And from that moment on, it was just all Van Halen to me. And it all comes to the ending was, for me, it was 1991. I saw them. I was going to college in upstate at the time. I saw them at the old War Memorial in Buffalo. So I knew the set list. And, Van Halen, they pretty much stick to the same set list. So then that following week, they were playing the Nassau Coliseum on Long Island. And I had, a bunch of us had gone, but I had one single ticket for myself. I was third row on Eddie's side. So I told my buddies for the show, I said, guys, I was 18. I said, listen, I'm getting on the stage. They were like, no, get out of here. No way. You're not going to do it. So I knew the set list about the third, maybe towards the end of the show, maybe they'll do 2 or 3 songs left. I worked my way up to the front row. I had one foot on the seat. And as soon as they hit that last note to the top of the world, I put my one foot on the barrier, and with all my might, I leaped over the stage. It's on YouTube. If you Google, Van Halen, Uniondale, New York, 91, it's on there. And I stumble. I stumble on the stage. I look up. Eddie Van Halen is there, arms wide open, gave me the biggest hug in the world. And I think I said, I love you, this and that. And then the guitar tech, he raises my hand to the crowd. The guitar tech, brings me downstairs onto the stage. But then when I got to see the video, that's a whole other story. But when I'm watching the video, you see Sammy and Michael, they're waving me on to come with the rest of the band. But the guitar tech already had me out to the bottom of the stage.
Wrestled down, yeah.
Oh man, that would have been amazing. But
hey man, I got to run because I got so many other callers. Yeah. But I appreciate you sharing your story. Okay.
Thanks, Eddie. Thank you.
All right. Take care, man. Look, that's the thing. And you hear this in everybody, in his story, and you'll hear it from everybody. There's such an amazing, like I was saying earlier, if you heard me at the start of the show, I dealt with this, meaning personally just dealing with what this means as a fan this morning for the first time because I was in such work mode about it earlier in the week, and hear about it later and hearing Fair Warning while I was out on a walk this morning, it just was very emotional for me. And that's why, because like you heard his story, and you remember getting the ticket, you remember being in the parking lot, you remember the tailgate, you remember in that case that guy trying to get on the stage. Everybody's going to have those stories. You remember how you got the tickets. We had a story, who was it the other day that was on with us, one of the artists saying that they got the Van Halen ticket. It turned out it was a bootleg. You worried about getting bootlegs from the scalpers, like they weren't selling you real tickets. You got to the turnstile, you were turned away. The opening of the show, the intro, hearing the drums, and then Eddie just making a ton of noise over the start of the show, like everything. And the other thing that he brings up that's a really, really good point that resonated with me was he said, I think he said his name was pronounced Saha, but he said something that's really, really interesting. He goes, yeah, and it was on Eddie's side of the stage. He just said that, right? That resonated with me because that was a huge deal. If you got Van Halen tickets, were you on Eddie's side of the stage? I know scalpers who charged more because of that side. If this, the seating was, especially on the floor, was to that side of the stage. Nothing against my dear friend who I love to pieces, Michael Anthony, but obviously people wanted to be on that side of the stage because you needed to see it for your own eyes. Maybe more so than any other band that I can think of. That was a consideration when scalping or trying to buy Van Halen tickets. Of course, Eddie moved around a lot on stage, but his side of the stage where that mic was, man, if you got that was the sweet spot. That's something that jumped out at me about what he just got done saying. Great stuff. Here's Randy in Oregon. Hi, Randy.
Hey, Eddie, let me get you off speaker. Really tough day. Great to be on the show with you, by the way.
Thanks, Randy.
Eddie was my childhood hero. And in a weird way, it feels like a slamming of the door on my childhood. And there was no one I admired more than that guy. I looked up to him. And first time I heard Van Halen, I went to Fresno to get 2 albums. I had my allowance money with me, and I bought Cheap Trick Heaven Tonight. And I just took a gamble on this band I'd never heard of before. I think I'd read a blurb about them in Cream, and I saw that 4-panel. They looked so cool. Took it home. I was blown away. Immediately just ran out to all my friends and said, stop what you're doing. You have to listen to this. And everybody had the same reaction. It was just mouth open. Oh, my God, what am I hearing? And it was just an amazing moment. I can't believe he's gone. I think I'm probably going to lose my shit the first time I hear Dreams this weekend. I think about what Tom Morello said the other day about the thousands of hours that Eddie put into being who he was. And I contrast that with today when I see these kids on TikTok and they flap their arms around for 40 seconds and expect to make $1 million from it. When you think about Eddie Van Halen.
The sad part about that, Randy, if I can jump in, is many of them do, believe it or not, doing that.
I know they do.
Influencers and YouTube people, but yes.
Yeah, they have millions of followers, and they're, cashing in on it. And honestly, I look around in the world today, and I just wonder, do we really have what it takes anymore to do the work and to have the discipline and to be someone like Eddie Van Halen? I mean, when people look at him and they probably think a rock star, they think probably drugs and women and alcohol. But when I see Eddie Van Halen, I see a guy who was completely dedicated to his craft, who put in thousands of hours, who probably when he wanted to smash the guitar against the wall and give up, but he kept going. And that kind of dedication and work is just something that we're just not seeing anymore. It's sad. And the passing of Eddie Van Halen is a big deal to me. And
yeah,
I just can't believe he's gone, man. I just can't. I love that guy so much.
Well, Randy, we're all dealing with it, man. Hang in there, bud. Thank you for the time and for calling in and listening, okay? There's Randy in Oregon. There's just so much. This is why I was really looking forward to. We're in two different phases here. Earlier in the week, where we had all these artists, and then I was really looking forward to today because I love all the artists and love what they brought to the show on Wednesday. But today is just hearing from you guys. It's just taking me back to so many memories. Like I remember, I was talking earlier in the show how much I love Women and Children First. And I remember getting that record. And I remember the circumstances surrounding it. I remember I would have been like 15 when that record came out. And my mom, I mean, this is crazy that I remember this, but I had a dentist appointment. And my mom was like, I knew I had to have a tooth drilled or something. And I was telling my mom I didn't want to go. And she's like, I'll take you to the record store after we go to the dentist. How's that? Okay. And then went to the record store and I bought the record. She let me buy a record. She said, I'll buy you a record. Pick what you want. And I got Women and Children First. And I remember, I don't know what it was on. Would it have been cassette or maybe even 8-track? Is 8-track still 1980? Probably. Yeah. Yeah, 8-tracks were still around. I don't remember what format, but it was in a portal. I usually always would get vinyl and then record the record to a cassette. And that's how I'd listen to it portable. But I might have actually gotten the cassette or whatever it was, but I remember putting it in the car and listening to it for the first time in the car as my mom drove. And to this day, I hear it and it reminds me of going to the dentist because I had like cotton and packed in my mouth or whatever they did in my mouth. And here, okay. And then I hit play in the car as soon as we got in and Cradle Will Rock came on and it was like, okay, I'm good now. Getting teeth drilled wasn't as bad if this is my reward. So it's just like stuff, and I don't remember anything. I mean, I'm terrible with dates and timelines. I couldn't tell you a person's birthday. I mean, unless somebody tips me off about some significant anniversary, I don't have a clue. For all the Stump the Trunk stuff and all the stuff that people think I know, the one area where I'm horrible is dates. But these sort of markers in your life, and that's why this is so unbelievably difficult. And the two things that make it better, if there's anything that dulls the pain a little bit in this, it's the fact that, like I said, for a while now, because of what Eddie was dealing with and whatever else was going on, he was largely inactive. This wasn't like this was a regular band the last 25 years that was putting out a record every 2 years and always there. There were huge gaps of inactivity. So there's that. But the other thing that I always take away, and I've said this a few times, is Eddie Van Halen and Jimi Hendrix absolutely belong in and will forever be in the same breath as two of the most iconic architects of rock music in history. I mean, they are absolutely, along with Les Paul, who created the thing, and you could argue others, whether it be Page or Clapton, but I think, and I'm pretty confident saying this, and this is with all respect to Page and Clapton, but I'm pretty confident in saying that in my view, three of the three guys, if you had to put it at three, maybe the most important to that instrument would be Les Paul, because he literally created it, Hendrix, Van Halen. And the nice thing, if you are in our age bracket, and when I say our age bracket, you could be anywhere from 35 to 55 years old, is when the history books are continually written and talked about for years as we're old and can barely get out of our chairs, or, when our time comes, people will wonder and talk about this guy, Eddie Van Halen, and man, what was it like to have seen him? What was it like to have heard those records when they were first released? What was it like to live in that era? And we can say we did it. See, we can't say we did it with Hendrix. And there are some people alive that can say that, obviously. And that's a really special thing. The people that I know, when I've had them on, I was like, wow, you saw Hendrix? Yeah, let me tell you about it. Wow, you saw Zeppelin in 73? Yeah, let me tell you about it. Changed my life. This is our guy. We are the people that can say to our kids and the younger generation as they grow up and discover this genius, we can say, oh, yeah, I went to like 10 shows. Oh, yeah, I got Women and Children the day it came out. That is really, really a great gift to our generation, if you think about it. That somewhere down the line, as much as it might be hard to process, somewhere way farther down the line, people will look back on us like, wow, imagine being cool, have lived through that. We did. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back. More calls on Trunk Nation.
Volume. Music. Free for All Friday.
A lot of people have no idea what that is.
Your opportunity to talk about anything. Trunk Nation with Eddie Trunk.
We're going to hear what you guys have to say.
Sirius XM.
Stuff like the on the spot.
Volume.
So my friend Matt Larson just sent me some texts. He lives in Los Angeles, and a photo in front of the house Eddie Van Halen grew up in, which obviously him or nobody from the family lives there anymore. I wonder if the people that do live there have any idea of the history of that very humble house there. And also a photo, he just sent me a little video of the sign in front of Pasadena High School. There's a little digital sign, and it's obviously a remembrance to Eddie Van Halen, who went to that high school. Yeah, this is going to be an ongoing thing. Let's get back to our phones and continue squeezing in as many people as we can here until the top of the hour as we get ready to wrap up what's been a hell of a week here. And I thank you all for listening, and we'll continue this on Monday if need be, no worries. And also, again, just a reminder, if you missed Wednesday's show where we had all these great guests on talking about Eddie Van Halen about 24 hours after the news broke on Wednesday, Tuesday, I got the news literally live on the air, and we went out to 3 hours on that day. And then Wednesday, we had a bunch of guests. The Wednesday show is replaying this weekend, all 3 hours of it, 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern time. Normally, the weekend best of is 8 to 10 Eastern. Because it was extended, it is going to start an hour earlier, 7 to 10 Eastern tomorrow and Sunday for rebroadcast of the 3-hour Van Halen tribute with Mike McCready from Pearl Jam and Tom Morello and Sebastian Bach and Bret Michaels and John Five and Scott Ian and Tom Kiefer, and I'm probably forgetting some people in there, and a few fan calls as well. So check that out. It's all on the app as well if you'd like to listen that way. Let's get back to more calls right now. Here is Mark, who's in Texas. Welcome, Mark.
Hey, Eddie, how's it going? Of course, like everybody else, the rumors were, he wasn't doing that well, and we knew what he was kind of going through. But then when you obviously hear the news, it's a gigantic deal, and it's kind of a you hear people talk about things like you feel older, you're getting older. This is one of those things that just kind of a black mark on the whole thing. The guy was an icon, and you're talking about fair warning, okay? I think from a guitar player standpoint, I do play. I'm obviously not even in that league, but I think the big thing that kind of the takeaway for me for fair warning was, the beginning of Mean Street, when you first put the needle down and that tapping comes on, and it kind of reminded me of I don't know, almost a mini version of something like a new eruption to introduce the song, and that's always what I remember. And the heaviness of it, it was just a solid rock bottom, kick you in the mouth guitar, and that's what there was some of it on Women and Children, but there was some, I don't know. It's like you say, it's hard to explain. But man, I got to see him on the first first, the fourth, the fifth, and the sixth tour, and 5150. And the difference between, I got to see a lot of people. I got to see Journey. I got to see Rush a lot of bands. Judas Priest, Black Sabbath, a lot of bands. The big separation for me with this thing is you knew when you were going to see Van Halen, especially after the first tour, that you were going to see the top guy. I mean, you were going to see, you knew he was a legend already. You were going to see a guy that a lot of people respected. And I was lucky enough on 5150, me and a buddy went. I had just moved back to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and I had, I'll never forget, I got my first paycheck, and I had nowhere for the money to go. So I said, I'm buying us tickets to go see Van Halen in Fort Worth at Tarrant County, and got seventh row center. And when the lights went down, people started to kind of rush the stage like they used to. And I looked at the security guy sitting next to me, and he motioned, go ahead, like you're going to do it anyway. So luckily I got to spend the whole show up against the barricade right in the middle. And it was a treat for the whole night, and I'll never forget that.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Some great points you made there. I appreciate it. We'll get into, and we'll have some fun down the line for sure, getting into debates and discussions and throwdowns about Van Halen. At some point, I'd love to do the first four records and make you guys rank them, because I think we could extend out to the first six records, the Roth records, if you want, when we do that. So we'll get to that. But when Mark makes that point about the heaviness of Fair Warning, the women and children fan in me is like, wait a minute, there's nothing heavier than Fools on Women and Children, or Everybody Wants Some, and all those guitar sounds going on in that song, or In a Simple Rhyme, one of my favorite Van Halen songs. So I don't know. I don't know how Women and Children gets lost. Again, this is a whole nother debate, but to me, Women and Children is the heaviest record, I think. I don't know. And the other thing about Mark, what Mark was saying too, that's interesting, and I was thinking about this the other day, like, you knew you were going to see the guy. Think about it even now. When you talk about and you hear about up-and-coming guitar players, or you hear about people, like, it's a thing, like, if you talk to someone who just plays rhythm guitar or plays guitar in a band or something, and they're like, well, he's no Eddie Van Halen. That's actually a thing. Like, that's actually that should be like in the dictionary. That's the benchmark that's used for somebody who's usually a very fine guitar player, but they're not that. Like, just think about that. Like, he's the guy, just that name is the guy that you use as the thing that, like, you can never ascend to. And Sebastian Bach made the point when he was on Wednesday, and if you listen over the weekend, you'll hear that replay. He's just like, to him, Van Halen was like a rallying cry. It was like, storm the gates, Van Halen. That was funny. So that's how impactful it was. Just the logo, just everything, these stories. And now people are talking about like rushing the stage, and I forgot about that. But that's that was a thing too. There was a time where a lot of people would find a way to get up and run onto the stage in the middle of the show and get yanked off or thrown off or whatever. We've already had a couple people on that said they did that. I mean, that it was a different time. Security wasn't quite as tight as it is now. A lot of that has changed. But there was a time where it was just the house security, and there were a couple ushers or whatever, and that was the only thing that was the barrier between you and actually getting on stage. And if you remember, even to this day, when that happens, there's some bands that are cool about it and play to it a little bit. And I mean, I've actually seen a musician wave the security guy off, and give him a chance to, give him 5 seconds up here. Or then sometimes people just get literally yanked out by the neck. Yeah, I don't see that go on as much anymore, because again, security is so different and everybody's got their guard up, so much more. But that was a big thing, and that happened seemingly a lot at Van Halen shows. Here's Chris in Connecticut. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Eddie, how are you? Hey, great story on the women and children first. That was a great story. Hey, a comment and two questions. I'm fairly new to Sirius, but I got to credit you because one of the best rock books I ever read was Noel Monk's book. I put that right up there with Hammer of the Gods. And my takeaway from that is that I really hated to see the way they treated Michael during the 1984 tour. But the one question I have, a couple days before 9/11, I saw the reunited Night Ranger at the Mohegan Sun here in Connecticut. And when Jack Blades began to introduce the band, he took a poll saying who likes the David Lee Roth Van Halen, who likes the Sammy Hagar Van Halen. And then he started to say, well, if you saw Sammy the last couple of years, there was a keyboard player in the dark that no one could see. And it was Alan Fitzgerald. Did you ever hear that story?
Well, Alan Fitzgerald, who was the keyboard player in Night Ranger up until probably around that time. I mean, he hasn't been in the band for a really long time. But yes, he was in Sammy's band back in the 70s and maybe early 80s.
Yeah, because Jack said he was actually playing with Van Halen. I thought those keyboard parts were taped, in the early 90s. But Jack said actually Alan was playing in the dark, off to the side of the stage with Van Halen. So I just didn't know if you ever heard that story. Hey, my last question. Do you think, or does it exist, will we ever see the entire concert from the MTV, the Fair Warning shows in Oakland, when they used to show Unchained? I'd love to see that entire concert. Does that exist?
I don't know. I think it was Unchained, and I think So This Is Love was also taken from that show with those live concert videos from back then. I don't know, Chris. I mean, I imagine it exists, and that ties in, and thank you, Chris. That ties into what we were talking about and what I was saying earlier. I think a lot of things exist. If you saw that video that MTV put out yesterday from '98, of Chris Connolly getting a tour by Eddie Van Halen of his studios, there are walls of tapes. Walls of tapes. Do things exist? I'm sure there's a ton that exists. What condition is it in? Will they want to put it out? Will they want people to see it? I mean, the thing, we can't forget that the thing with Van Halen is they have been unbelievably closed quarters in terms of just knowing what's going on. Does that change now? We don't know. Does stuff start coming out? We don't know. Do they want it? What are the plans for that? Are there any plans? The good news is Wolfie is, I think he's still like only in his mid to late 20s. So there is, as I said earlier, a custodian to this stuff that is very, very much attached, actually, obviously was in the band recently. And during those last couple Van Halen tours, I mean, Eddie gave a lot of rope to Wolfgang at that time, picking the set list and what have you. So the way I see it is, and of course Alex is going to have a voice in all this too, but the way I see it is they're going to make the ultimate decision when they deal with all this and when they feel up to it to say what will and won't come out. But I have a feeling there's a ton. Not a feeling, I know. It's just a question of what condition it is, how fully done it is, if they're parts of songs, if they're riffs, if there's full songs, if there's outtakes from records. I have a feeling there's a ton. And if they wanted to, we could be getting records or some sort of songs or videos and things for a very, very, very long time. Somebody mentioned the Open to Mean Street the other day, or just the other call or two ago, actually. A real eye-opener on that. And again, I don't play guitar. Couldn't play a note. But I'll tell you what, when I realized how difficult that was very recently. So there is an amazing Van Halen tribute band called the Atomic Punks. And one of my highlights when we do the Monsters of Rock cruises is they're usually on it. And they do such an amazing job playing Van Halen. And I know there's a ton of VH tributes, but this really is one of the best ones I've ever seen, if not the best. And they just do an amazing job, and they play anything from the catalog. And it's just so much fun to have a few beers and hear those songs and watch these guys do them so well. And the guitar player in it, Lance, he is just brilliant at nailing the Van Halen stuff. So the last Monsters of Rock cruise, Extreme was on the cruise. And, of course, Nuno is a huge Van Halen guy. And Nuno is a brilliant guitar player. So Nuno was texting me because he was at a dinner or something, but he wanted to go up and play with the Atomic Punks. He said, I want to jam a couple songs with those guys. He said, tell them, here's what I want to play or whatever. So I was relaying the message to the guys because I was going to intro the Atomic Punks in this little lounge on the ship. And they ended up going on like 3 hours late because there was some technical problem. But Nuno shows up and he sees me and he comes over and he goes, you tell him what I want to do? I said, yeah, but they, Joe and the rest of the guys in the band said that they want you to do Mean Street. And Nuno looked at me, he goes, oh shit. And I was like, what do you mean? What? And he goes, I can't play the beginning of that. And I thought he was messing with me. Because Nuno's an insane player in his own right. And I'm like, what do you mean? I mean, to me, there was nothing in my mind that Nuno couldn't possibly do because he's so great himself. And he goes, I can't do that open. I mean, I've tried forever. I just can't do the open. I can't do it. I really can't do it. He goes, if I'm going to do it, the other guy's going to have to do it, or we're just going to have to start after that. I want to start the song with, na, 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 na. He goes, that's how I'm going to start it. I'm not going to do the open. And sure enough, he went up and played Mean Street, but when he did it, he did not do the open. So that was like so eye-opening to me because I don't know what is harder than other things. I just know to my ears what I like, not being a player. And the fact that Nuno Bettencourt wanted to bail on that opening piece. Now, look, I'm sure if he had to, he could do a version of it, but he did not feel comfortable doing it. And I was like, man, that's all you need to know, that there's just something that Nuno can't do, who, of course, is a disciple of Van Halen. Just was like, whoa, that's unbelievable to me. Okay, final break. We'll come back, our final few calls, as we get ready to wrap up the week here on Trunk Nation right after this.
Trunk Nation with Eddie Trunk.
AC/DC, and then Foghat, Boston, Foreigner, Journey. Still bring it as good or better than anybody else.
Sirius XM just rocks. Volume. Free for All Friday. Pick up the phone and ask Eddie anything.
Go ahead, you're on Trunk Nation.
The main criteria for induction in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is, my question involves Iron Maiden.
Let me ask you a business question.
Trunk Nation with Eddie Trunk. Sirius XM's Volume.
All right, we got a few minutes left to go before we wrap up what's been a hell of a week here. Monday, I'm back live at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, and things could change over the weekend, but right now that show is clear in terms of guests. So we can continue this, and I have no problem doing so. This is as enormous as it gets in our world of rock, the loss of Eddie Van Halen. It is as tragic as it gets. We are all still dealing with it and processing it, and will be for quite some time. So you guys are really going to determine when calls shift away from this or take a break from this. But if you have more you want to talk about Monday, we can certainly do it, and no problem on that. And we're going to do it Tuesday, too. The only difference on Tuesday is we will be joined by Neil Sean of Journey, who is not only going to join us with thoughts about Eddie, who Van Halen opened for Journey on their first tour back in '78, and we'll get some great stuff from Neil on that. But Neil recorded a cover of Ain't Talking About Love with Linda Perry on vocals that he never released 8 years ago. And he's going to debut that on this show as well as a tribute to Eddie. So it's going to keep rolling in, and we're going to keep doing stuff as it makes sense here, because there's just so much to talk about, and this is so meaningful and so important to me and so many others as we continue to mourn, remember, and celebrate Eddie Van Halen. Also, again, tomorrow and Sunday, 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, all 3 hours of the tribute show is replaying that I did on Wednesday here on Volume. And, the other thing I want to mention real quick, unrelated to Van Halen, but in a way it is, the irony of this did not escape me. Literally since the start of this show and the start of this channel 4 years ago, the two bands that I have said consistently are the most asked about, the most talked about, the most speculated about on this show, Van Halen and AC/DC. How many times have I said it in the last 4 years here alone? They're the two bands I'm most asked about, people wonder about because we don't hear much about. How crazy is it that in the last week, those worlds have collided unbelievably? And one in the best of ways and one in the worst of ways. The irony of that has not escaped me. Because lost in all of this Van Halen stuff is the fact that AC/DC are actually back and put out a new song and are popping up everywhere. I mean, apparently they did an interview on the football show on NFL Network this morning. I didn't see it, but they were promoting it during the football game last night. I'm still waiting for the powers that be here at SiriusXM to tell me if we're going to do something with the guys on this show. I know Brian, and when they give me the green light, I mean, I'd love to do something, and I'm sure we will at some point. But just think about that. How nuts is that? That Van Halen, AC/DC, I can't begin to tell you how many calls in the last 4 years. You think they're going to do something. You think they're going to do something. I wonder what's going on. And now, in the last week, at the same time AC/DC gets active, releases a great song, announces a record, announces the reunion with the lineup you want, at the same time, another shoe drops of absolute tragedy with the other band. That's crazy to me. And in a way, the excitement of AC/DC being back and the excitement of a new song and a record and somewhere down the line a possible tour has absolutely been dampened by what happened with Van Halen. There'd be no bigger story than AC/DC coming back right now, but this tragedy has completely overtaken it in terms of the news cycle. Now, that's not to say AC/DC will be fine, and the record's coming in November and all that. We'll get there. But you know what I'm talking about. I mean, it's just the irony of that is crazy that these two bands collided at this time after waiting forever for information from either of them. And now we have full information on both of them. One, the end of, and the other, a rebirth of at, with guys in their 70s, but making great music. So it's just so bizarre and ironic, given those are the bands that just dominate our discussion so often for so long. How about we say hello to John, who's in Florida? John, welcome.
Hey, man. I just wanted to say God bless Wolfie Van Halen, because when Dave left that band, there was tremendous shit talk between Eddie and Dave in the press for ever, and I was convinced I'd never see that band again, and that was my Van Halen. And it was Wolfie who convinced Eddie to get back with Dave, and it was Wolfie who picked all the songs on that set list on that 2007 tour, and Hear About It Later was included in that set list, and that's my all-time favorite song and album from that band. So to me, Wolfie saved Van Halen, and I wish him and everyone the best.
Well, John, as I said earlier, I've gotten to know Wolfie a little bit in the last few years. Thank you for your call. I saw him last time I was in L.A. We spoke. We've exchanged messages via DM on Twitter. He follows me. I follow him, so we talk that way. I don't know him well, but we talked a little bit in February when I was in L.A. backstage at the Alter Bridge show, and then we went out front, he and I, and we both watched that show from the soundboard a little bit. And then I first met him when he was playing in Mark Tremonti's band in New York. Hell of a nice guy. I got nothing but nice things to say about him. I feel for him. My heart goes out to him, the entire Van Halen organization and family. It really does. But as I said earlier, I think that I think that when this all settles and he deals with this, the good thing here is the future of Van Halen is in good hands for the exact reasons you state. If you look at the history, right, we know, okay, we're all loving and celebrating and remembering Van Halen. But if we also take a step back from that, we know that we'd be kidding ourselves if we didn't reference the fact that there's been a tremendous amount of drama over the decades. Ex-members who, Sammy, Dave, sniping in the press, Michael, whatever. There's a lot of, being totally honest, there's a lot of insanity that surrounds this story as well. And the really cool thing to me about Wolfgang is he cut through all that stuff. If you notice, he was even very cool about Michael Anthony. Wolfgang's the only guy, and being that he's young, that is active on social media. He's very active on Twitter, which is my primary social media. So I see a lot of what he posts, and that's why we communicate that way too. And so he was the only guy that we could get anything from on those fronts. But he, to me, very much seemed like a guy that, in the eye of this hurricane that's been going on since he's been older now, he's been like very centered. He's been, he's funny about some stuff. He knows how crazy the fans can be about some stuff, but he's also very much like inclusive about the history of the band and the people involved in it. And I think that's a really, really, really good sign going forward. And now the coast is clear, and obviously he wouldn't have wanted it this way, but the coast is clear now for him to start his own music career. And I've said for a long time, I think that this record was being held back because of what was going on with his dad. So, and he has said, if you follow him, he is not Eddie Van Halen. He is not going to, his music is not going to be a substitute for Van Halen. It's his own thing. And people I know have said it's fantastic. But now the gates are open for him as a very young guy still, with his whole life ahead of him, to really not only honor his father's history and legacy and to be the custodian of that, but to also blaze his own path and do his own thing and build his own legacy as a musician as well. So this is a really important time and pivotal time in his life. And he's got on one shoulder the weight of the Van Halen universe, and on the other shoulder he's got the desire, as he should, to do his own thing musically and blaze his own trail. So it's an interesting time for sure. And the other thing about it is, and Sebastian brought this up too, I always thought, as it stands now, and maybe for good, who knows, A Different Kind of Truth will stand as the final ever Van Halen record, unless they release posthumous stuff. I always felt that record was criminally underrated. Outside of Tattoo, which I never cared for, I always thought that record was criminally underrated. I thought it should have gotten so much more attention when it initially came out. I was yelling about it. And when Sebastian was on Wednesday, he thinks it's the heaviest Van Halen record. I don't know if I'll go that far, but I do think it's a greatly overlooked record. And he, of course, was a part of that record. So, all of this stuff, it's so much to process. It's still so fresh. It's still unbelievably difficult and tragic. And, everyone's dealing with this on a different level, the personal level, the fan level. All of it is just being processed. And, we'll get through it. And we've got these records, man. I'll be listening over the weekend and just going down those memories, and just the records still sound as good as when they first came out. It's just timeless stuff. It really is. Look, it's been a hell of a week, you guys. Thank you so much for being a part of it with me and you helping me through it. And hopefully I helped you through it and giving you a platform to sound off. We'll do more. Trust me, Monday, 2 o'clock Eastern, I'm back. I apologize if I didn't get to you. I know the phones have been jammed and the 2 hours go by like that. But we had a couple 3-hour shows in there this week, too, so go grab them on the app if you missed anything. Thanks to Lauren, thanks to Jake, thanks to Angelo, thanks to Maddie. Alex is with me on Monday, so we got our own little reunion going on Trunk Nation. And you guys have yourselves a wonderful weekend. And I'll talk to you Monday, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, live for more Trunk Nation. Take care.